Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for the final show that I need to review in 2016 before I make my top 20 best shows of 2016. And that, of course, is a show that I was definitely very interested in. I've wanted to watch this show for a very, very long time now, and finally I have finished it. And that is none other than the very well critically acclaimed, but not really seen by a ton of people miniseries, and that, of course, is Horace and Pete. I have wanted to watch this show for so long. Ever since I heard that Louis C.K. released this show completely mysteriously, no one knew really what this was, I was very interested. But let me explain really how this all happened, because Louis C.K. released this show. There was no promotion. There was no sort of build-up. No one knew this was coming out. Louis C.K. just randomly released the first episode, and everyone thought that this was just a one-off. There was going to be a stage play, and that was it, and that it was a really well-done stage play. Well, to everyone's surprise, not only did he release another episode, he released 9 more episodes, and it turned out that Horace and Pete was actually a mini-series, and just the way that that was done, it's so rare that you hear that happen nowadays, and that in general is really one of the things that drew me to Horace and Pete. The fact that he did this all on his own so he could have as much creative control as possible is just incredible. I love that he did that, and back when the show came out in January, I did want to review it, but at the same time, I didn't want to have to pay $2 to $3 for something where I didn't know if it was going to be good or not. I just didn't want to do that. I know that that makes me look dumb and things like that. Now that I've seen the show, it definitely does. I just didn't really know if it was worth it. I had other things to spend money on, so I didn't get to watch it till now, because finally it came onto Hulu, and I am so happy it did, because Horace and Pete is one of the most effective, tragic, just incredible miniseries that I have seen in such a long time. There really is nothing else like this on TV, and I truly do mean that. But let's just get to the plot of Horace and Pete, which the plot of this show, if I were to tell you the plot, you'd say, that sounds really, really boring. And it might sound like it, but trust me, it's not. Basically, our basic plot is we focus on these two brothers. One's named Horace and one's named Pete. They've worked in this bar that has had Horace and Pete's for about, I think, 100-something years. And Horace and Pete's, we see that this is basically their day job, and they constantly work at this bar and are met by patrons who like to have discussions with them about Donald Trump and things like that. And one day, Pete receives this really huge revelation from his Uncle Pete that really changes everything, and things then get even more complicated when their sister Sylvia comes to the bar, but not because she wants to. She's there for 2 reasons. One, because she has cancer that's, close to possibly killing her, and 2, she wants nothing to do with the bar and wants to take full ownership and close it down for good because of all the evil that remains in the bar because of the dark history that Horace and Pete share. And that's basically a plot of Horace and Pete overall. There's a lot more to the show, and that I didn't even give you the bigger plot details. But let's just get into the show, starting off with the performances. And that's something I definitely will say, is that when it comes to acting, you can't necessarily call this acting, because yeah, it is definitely acting, but it feels more like a stage performance, and that's all the better. That's not really a bad thing in this case. Let's first talk about Louis C.K. here, who, holy shit, Louis C.K. I mean, he did an incredible job in this show, really. I mean, I've been a fan of the TV show Louis. I've always respected Louis C.K. as an actor. I think that he's very talented. I think he can be very funny at times. But I don't think that Louis C.K. is someone who, in my book, is considered, I haven't really seen him do a lot of dramatic stuff. And here, he gets to channel a whole new energy, because Horace and Pete is not exactly a comedy, and the character of Horace in general is just so damn interesting. Constantly, Horace is kind of like a fly on the wall in many ways. He's kind of just the one that's there. He really cares about his brother. He really wants to provide for him. He cares about his sister as well, but he also, for some strange reason, cares about the bar and doesn't really want to do anything else like significant in his wife. He has a wife who he who has kind of abandoned him. He has a daughter who he's not really close with. So Horace just has a really tragic life. And the way that Louis C.K. Has this nuance with this performance, I thought overall did such an incredible job in this show. He has so many incredible scenes that aren't really him yelling or anything like that. They're just him acting the hell out of a scene, and you can tell how much he got into this character. You could tell how passionate he was about the show, and he was absolutely incredible. I love what he did in this show. I thought that he's one of the best performances I've seen all year, and he really was great. And then Steve Buscemi as Pete, what another incredible role here, because as good as Horace is, Pete is really the thing that makes the show so sad, because Pete has two big revelations. One, very early on in the show, this is not a spoiler, it's literally revealed in the first episode, it is revealed that Uncle Pete is actually Pete's father, and the way that this takes a while to fully, adjust into Pete's mind that, holy shit, who I thought was my father is not actually my father, and Horace, who I thought was my brother, is actually my cousin. It's this huge reveal, and Steve Buscemi just does such a great job with processing it. And you see that throughout the show. Pete's having a really hard time processing it, and eventually when he does, things just get worse and worse throughout the show. But Pete is also someone who has very bad schizophrenia and very bad mental illness that he constantly tries to overcome. And throughout the show, you see that it starts to deteriorate more and more and more. And a lesser actor could have done this and it could have come across as really cheesy, but Steve Buscemi is just so great in this show that he really, really do believe him, when he's having these hallucinations, when he's saying all these horrible things and things like that. You really believe what he's doing, you understand why he has this mental illness, and the chemistry between Louis C.K. and Steve Buscemi is spot on. I cared so much about both of these characters. I found the relationship to be so interesting in this show, and they are definitely the thing that completely anchors the emotional levity of the show, and that's something that definitely is very important. You need to care about these two characters, and you absolutely do. Their relationship, while very complicated, is fantastic. I love what they do with them, and by far some of the most well-realized characters, in my opinion, of 2016 by far. But that's not to say the rest of the ensemble isn't great, because they absolutely are. Edie Falco in the show as Sylvia is kind of a hard character to like, because this is someone who's constantly having these outbursts, and she's constantly wanting to close the bar, and it's hard to like her character. In fact, I've seen many people say they don't like her character, and I get it, I really do, but this is also someone whose cancer starts to take hold of her, and she starts to say a lot of things that she really does regret, because the emotional weights of the cancer is starting to affect her everyday life. And the way that Edie Falco portrays that, because there are, many significant time jumps throughout the show, and the way that Edie Falco, I think, portrays that as Sylvia is nothing short of remarkable. She was incredible in this role. She did such a great job with portraying, this character's, this character's wants, this character's needs, this character's, emotional side, and there are times where you really feel bad for Sylvia, where you see what she went through, and you see she's very outnumbered, and you see why she wants to close the bar, and then there are times where she is just a monster, and it's just completely just has it on her daughter. Like, she just completely gives it to her, and you're like, you are a monster. I mean, seriously, what she does to her daughter in this one episode is insane. It really is. I mean, she is a monster at points, but again, you get the sense this is the cancer taking a hold of her, and it's very sad to see. There are some scenes that are very hard to watch with her, but the way that her mental state, not mental state, but the way that her cancer deteriorated throughout the show was really well done. I thought she did an incredible job in the show. I haven't seen Edie Falco in a ton. I'm not a huge Nurse Jackie person. I never really watched that show, but she was incredible in the show. I love what Edie Falco did here. Such an incredible performance that, unfortunately, again, is going to get snubbed for the Emmys, but she also was incredible. I love what she did here, and I can't wait to see Edie Falco do more in the future, because she also just added this whole other side to the show that I absolutely loved. And then Alan Alda's also in the show as their Uncle Pete, who, again, is a very hard character to like, because this is someone who's constantly saying the most racist, the most offensive, the most sexist things possible, and yet you understand where he's coming from. you get the sense that this is a man who's seen it all, who's lived a very tough life, who knows what it really means to have a horrible life, and knows what Horace and Pete's childhood was like, and you very much care for him because of that. Even though, like I said, throughout the show, he says these horrible, horrible things, and, he's treating Horace and Pete like absolute shits. When you really get down to what he's been through, when you find out more about his background, you really start to realize, okay, this is why he's like that. And again, a lesser actor, I don't think, could have portrayed this as well as Alan Alda did, but Alan Alda absolutely killed it in this scene, in this show. I think he was just incredible. I loved everything that he had to do here. And he, again, was just another incredible role. I loved Alan Alda here. I thought his relationship with Pete was really well done. His relationship with Horace as well. There are just some incredible scenes. And there's this one scene between him and Pete where he's just sitting down. He's talking to Pete about what it really means to love a woman. And it's nothing short of riveting. I mean, I was so riveted throughout the scene. It was very funny, but it was also very, very honest, and again, you could really tell where Uncle Pete was coming from. And when the show really takes a turn, Alan Alda really did an incredible job with it. I thought that he was just incredible in the show, and he by far is one of the absolute standouts. He was really great here. And then some of the bar patrons. We have this one patron who we see throughout the entire show, and his name is Kurt, who oddly enough is played by Kurt Metzger, and this is a very interesting character. This is someone who constantly throughout the show is talking about Donald Trump being elected and how, oh, we're doing this, in a way to destroy the political system and all this stuff. And I thought his views on that was just really, really interesting. Sometimes it was a little bit silly, but it made sense, definitely. I thought overall he definitely did a good job. And then Stephen Wright as Leon. I can't say too much about his character because we don't really find a ton about him until later into the season, but he was also really great. I thought he did a really good job. And then the only performance to really talk about is Jessica Lange as Marcia, who also was incredible. I was very happy to see Jessica Lange back on the show. She's a recovering alcoholic who was also Horace Sr.'s last sexual partner before his death, and she has some incredible scenes in the show. She really was incredible, and I really love what Jessica Lange had to do here. She really did a great job, and overall, I think this cast in general is one of the best casts I have seen in such a long time. I think everyone really gave a pitch-perfect performance, and there's no one here who I thought was overacting. I think everyone acted exactly as the way they should. I thought they all were incredible, and everyone really did a perfection job, and that really is required when it comes to a show as deep as this is. So as good as the cast is, now we're going to talk about the directing and the writing because, holy shit, I mean, this show is so cathartic, and it's so emotional. It's just such a ride. It really is. And I mean, you don't really know what you're getting into. But again, let's just talk about the genius of Louis C.K., who wrote, he directed, he did everything to this show pretty much. The way that this was complete, I very much respect, because that rarely happens nowadays, where someone has full creative control. And the fact that Louis C.K. did everything in his power to get said creative control is incredible to me. I thought that it completely paid off because of that, and his directing here. The tone is at points is very funny. Like, you definitely do get a fun sense with the tone, but it's also very melancholy. You can tell throughout the show that there is this darkness that's just completely protruding throughout the show, and you're not exactly sure what's going to happen or where it's going to go. But when that darkness hits, the show gets even better because it really does show the emotional weight of these characters. And I thought his directing there was just really, really well done in that sense. And the tone worked the entire time. There wasn't really a time when it didn't work. The only time it didn't work was a little bit in the middle. There was one episode where I thought it got a little too heavy-handed, but other than that, I thought the tone was very well executed throughout the show. I was very into it the whole time, and I thought the directing was absolutely fantastic. And the writing here, holy shit, the writing. I mean, this story is so brilliantly crafted to the point where, like I said, it doesn't feel like a TV show. It feels more like you're watching a 10-hour stage play, and it's incredible the way that Louis C.K. was able to do this, because constantly throughout the show, the sets look like sets on a Broadway stage. The way the characters talk feels like they're on a stage play, and we ourselves feel like a fly on the wall. Like, we're kind of in the bar observing all this go down, and the way they do that, making it feel as intimate as possible, is incredible. I love the way that this felt like a stage play, and they do everything in their power to make it feel that way, because it really does feel like one. I mean, there are some scenes in the show where characters will just cut to characters that we never are going to see again. There's a scene where we have the two characters on a Tinder date, and they're just talking about, how awkward this date was, but at the same time, every scene really has something to say. There's so much that the show really has to say about control, and how we constantly let other people control us and corrupt our minds and make us think that this is the direction we need to go, and how we're not willing to think for ourselves because it's just the easy thing to do, to listen to other people and do what they want you to do rather than do what you feel is best for you. And that's something that the show just understood so well in a way that you really wouldn't expect it to. And I love the way the show did this. And like I said, constantly throughout the show, there are so many meaningless conversations that have nothing to do with the rest of the show. Like I said, one of the recurring scenes is this guy talking about Donald Trump and how he's doing all this great stuff, and then you have a guy who's saying he's not doing stuff. And regardless of what you agree or not with your belief system, with the politics and everything, this is just so riveting to watch, because you really do understand both of where they're coming from. You understand why they feel this way, and they did such a great job with presenting that. I thought the writing there was very spot on. And then when we did get into the real story of it all, I was completely riveted. Rarely is the show very story driven, though, and that's something I did like. I actually liked that the show wasn't completely story driven. I mean, this is a show that is completely unpredictable in terms of where exactly it was going to go. I mean, there is an entire episode in the show, and I'm not even joking, where we see Laurie Metcalf shows up in an episode, and we have no idea what's going on here. She's talking about all this stuff, with her husband, and how she liked her husband's grandfather and briefly had like a sexual thing with him, and she's just talking all this ridiculous nonsense. We have no idea what she's talking about. And it's not till about 14 minutes in the episode when we realize that this is none other than Horace's ex-wife. And the way that they do that is brilliant, hilarious, and remarkable at the same time. All three of those things were just so culminating together. In this entire episode, they don't get at each other's throats. They're not doing this to manipulate each other. They're just having a conversation. We're just seeing part of Horace's life, seeing where this went wrong, why this relationship is, why they're still friends, things like that. And it's incredible. The entire third episode is just these two having a conversation, and as boring as it sounds, I was into every single scene with that episode, and every episode for that matter. There wasn't a single scene in the show that I wasn't completely riveted. I mean, I was so hooked throughout the entire show, because constantly there'll be a scene that's completely pointless, and then you'll realize, holy shit, that's what they're really trying to do. Every scene really does have a deeper meaning. Some scenes you need to watch twice, some shows you really need to process, and this is one of those shows that you do fully need to process once you're done with it. And I thought Louis C.K. did an incredible job with that in terms of the writing. I mean, it's just so rich. It's such a brilliantly crafted story, and the direction that it goes, you don't expect at all. I'll get into that when we get into spoilers, but I really feel that it really was incredible overall. My only complaint with Horace and Pete, and I do have a couple, like I said, I do think the tone at times did dwindle a bit, where it got a little too heavy-handed and a little too over the top, especially this one episode involving Pete and this girl that he ends up bringing home. I mean, I just think that episode got a little too heavy-handed, and I think that definitely did kind of ruin the tone a little bit. And then my only other complaint is, while I thought Jessica Lange was really great in this show for what she had, she never really served a real purpose, in my opinion. I felt like she was here, but she didn't really do much of anything. She was there to talk, to seduce Horace and talk about her alcohol problems, but she never really served a true purpose on the show. I felt like they could have done a lot more with her. They could have given her a lot more to do here, and they just didn't really give her, I think, the necessary character development and the necessary story that she really needed. But honestly, guys, because of how great the show is, I'm willing to overlook these flaws. I really am. I think even though Jessica Lange, like I said, was very badly snubbed in the show, I'm willing to overlook it, and that's because of how great everything else is. And like, cinematography here is unlike any other show on TV. It's very, very minimal sets. You're either in Horace's apartment, or you're in a doctor's office, or you're in the house. You don't really go many places outside the bar, though, and you feel very confined in this bar. Almost like you can't get out of this bar. Like, it's not something where it's a good thing that you're in this bar. No, this is not a happy bar. This is a bar full of horrible, dark memories that constantly Horace and Pete continue to, reference, and they start to remember from being in here. And the way that they did that again, the way the bar kind of became its own character. The bar really is the true villain of the show, because it holds all the evil and all of the tragedy within Horace and Pete as characters. And I think they did that in an incredible way with the cinematography. I really did love that. The score, there's only one song throughout this entire show, and that, of course, is Horace and Pete by Paul Simon. If it's not that, it's another song by Paul Simon. But the way that propels the emotion and drama and weight, there are constantly times where the show will end on something really dramatic, and then it'll go to an intermission. And the way they did that really did propel the scene overall. It made us feel very emotional, and they did a really good job with the score. And then the editing. This show is a very unique style when it comes to editing, because so many shows, have this status quo where they need to be 40 minutes, or they're typically an hour, or they're typically longer than that. This show doesn't have a status quo. I mean, some episodes of this show, the first episode's like an hour and 10 minutes, and you're thinking, okay, every episode's going to be an hour. Then you get to episode 4, and it's 30 minutes, and it's pretty crazy the way that Louis C.K. was able to do that, but it really is, again, nothing short of remarkable, the way he was able to make the episode lengths the lengths that he wanted them, and it works really, really well. I mean, really, some episodes didn't need to go on for more than half an hour. I think definitely, for the most part, most of the episode lengths benefited them from having the shorter length. They benefited them from having to go overtime and tell this, have an hour episode where it's very overstuffed. They didn't need to do that in this show, and they did that really well, I have to say. I think it was just incredibly well done the way they did that. And then also, if you guys didn't know, the way they would do the show is they'd actually shoot it on that Friday, actually that Thursday, literally the Thursday before they put up the episode. They'd edit the show on Friday and then put it up on Saturday for everyone to watch. And the way they did that is, again, in a way I haven't really seen other shows do it, and they did it incredibly here. I love the way the editing was done. But either way, guys, that is enough for me talking about all the technical stuff. Now let's get into what I really want to talk about, which are the spoilers. If you guys have not seen the final episode of Horace and Pete, do not, I repeat, do not watch the rest of this review. I'm going to go full on spoilers here, and if you guys think that you can handle the ending, let me just tell you that you are not ready at all. But I'm going to go full on spoilers, talking about everything that went down, so let's just get right into it. So after the events of episode 9, with Pete, of course, not being there, and him, going away and not being on his meds and things like that, and him hallucinating Uncle Pete, the show makes you think that Pete is getting better. Like, Uncle Pete's helping him realize, what his true purpose is, and then Uncle Pete's going to help him through this. But then as it goes on, when we get to the flashbacks, I knew that there definitely was going to be a purpose there. And the flashbacks honestly kind of destroyed me. I mean, I was not at all prepared for what these flashbacks were going to show. With the flashbacks showing that, we knew that Horace Sr. was very abusive. We knew this. We knew that he constantly beat on his wife and kids, and just little things like him wiping the makeup off of Sylvia, or him grabbing his wife by the shoulder, by her shirt, telling her, no, you can't go visit your sister. Or him going to Horace and embarrassing him in front of her. Well, that was actually Pete that did that. Was just incredible to watch. And again, Louis C.K. did such an incredible job of playing a completely different character in the first half of this episode, which is not easy to do at all. When you've been playing this character of Horace, who's so genuine and so emotional and just so touching and really cares about people, and then you're playing Horace Sr., who's the complete opposite, who really just this monster who's constantly beating on everyone in his family because they're not doing what he specifically wants them to do. It's just really hard to watch, and I think he did an incredible job with that scene. Definitely, he was absolutely incredible here. But then you get to the very end of it, once we see that once we get to the very end, and we start to see that not only, did Horace, try to prevent Sylvia and, his wife from leaving, who his wife was actually played by Edie Falco, which made the scene that much more interesting. But they left Pete behind. They left Pete behind, and Horace then is wailing on Pete, and no one really bats an eye or anything because it's the 70s, and that's just what they did then, and it's so hard to watch because you know exactly what's going on, and the fact that we don't see it, that makes the scene that much more startling. We know exactly what's happening to Pete. We know this is how Pete became who he is today, and it's just really sad to see. You can tell that Uncle Pete wants to do something, but at the same time, he can't tell Horace that he's his father. It's just a very difficult revelation, and this is really one of those scenes where you actually sympathize with Uncle Pete. You get why he didn't want to tell Pete. Pete was already going through so much shit. There was too much stuff for Pete to process, and there really wasn't a way for him to say, I'm your father. But I did love the way that Uncle Pete does try to praise Pete and does try to defend him. He treats him like a son. He treats Horace like shit. He doesn't really care that much about him. But Pete, he really does try to treat like a son, and it's a very emotional scene. But that is nothing compared to the second half of the episode. As bad as the first half was, because I'm not going to lie, I was tearing up definitely just in this scene. That's nothing compared to the second half, because, I was not prepared, I have to say. I was not at all prepared. And I knew what was going to happen here. I heard countless reviews saying this is what happens at the end of the 10th episode. I knew exactly what was going to happen. And I don't just do that because I want to be spoiled. I do that to prepare myself just so I know, what's going to go down and things like that. But even knowing that, this was such a well-done final scene, basically, because we see Pete, they get notice that, actually, we don't see Pete, we see Horace and Sylvia, and they get notice from a cop that Pete is probably dead. They can't find him anywhere. They've even sent a fire squad. No one has heard any word of him, so they don't really know where he is, and Sylvia is telling Horace after this that she's going to leave. She's wanting to leave this bar. She wants to get the hell out of there. She suggests that he does too. And I love how she's not supportive of him. She finally tells him that, look, this is not the life that you wanted. You did what your father told you to do. You did it because it was easy. You didn't try to find your own path for yourself. And that is why you are in the situation you're in now. And the way they really got into this with Horace, I think they were definitely showing throughout the entire show. But this episode specifically, they did a really smart thing of keeping the focus solely on Horace and the potential that he had and how he completely wasted all of that potential, because yeah, he really did. Horace could have been a very successful man. He could have done something really great with his life. What exactly, I'm not entirely sure, but he could have done something really great with his life. He could have gone a great career direction, and he just decided not to. And sure, we don't really know what Horace is supposed to do, but I feel like it's not really supposed to be about what Horace was supposed to do. It's more that this is not what Horace was meant to do. He could have done something much different than this, and this is not at all the career path that Horace really wanted. So you get to the ending, and this new bartender comes in, played by, what's her name? Amy Sedaris. Okay, yeah, Amy Sedaris. Princess Carolyn herself from BoJack Horseman. She comes in, and, not as Princess Carolyn, as her own character, and she's just so peppy. She's very confident, she's very happy, she really wants to fill this position, and it's a way where he really didn't see this kind of confidence before. He really didn't see this kind of confidence in someone. The bar was always such a depressing place, and the way that this kind of gives Horace hope after he leaves, and he starts to realize that maybe this can work out. Maybe this is a good thing that I'm staying here. Maybe I'm realizing what I really want to do. And he's about to tell Sylvia what he wants to do when in walks Pete, and Pete is completely disheveled. You can tell that he's been he's obviously been treated very badly. He hasn't been on his meds. This is a guy who looks near death, and the way that Horace looks at him is not a look of tragedy. It's a look of hope. It's a look that maybe this is a good thing. Maybe he can get Pete back on the right track. Maybe he can finally get them out of this bar. Maybe they can find a career for each other. Maybe they can finally make amends and move past all this. And then at the worst time, when Horace is about to tend to Pete, Pete pulls out the kitchen knife that Sylvia was cutting limes with, and in that moment, Sylvia knows exactly what Pete's about to do. We cut off screen, we hear a scream, and just that entire scene, I was so into it. I loved everything about the final scene. As sad as it was and as tragic as the outcome was, knowing where it went, I think was the exact direction for the show, because that message entirely shows that this is a man who had great potential and that this bar was a terrible thing. But unfortunately, he realized that he realized way too late into his life. There just was no going back. The choice was made. He couldn't get out of there, and he died in the one place that held all the evil that he solely tried to, get rid of. And unfortunately, he couldn't do that, and we get to the ending, and the ending was absolutely brilliant. Sylvia's cleaning at the bar. It looks like that she's gonna leave, and, looks like that this is it. Her son comes in, and before this, Harold, the guy who she was gonna leave the bar with, who was gonna help her leave the bar, who's actually played by Reggie Cathy, yeah, Giles himself from Outcast, which was really cool to see him here. He basically tells her, maybe you can open up your own place, call it Sylvia's place, but she's not interested in that at all. Her nephew comes in, Horace the Ninth, who didn't really have a relationship with Horace, and he asked her one big question. That is, how was my dad? Who was he? He wants to know exactly who his dad was. And she tells him that he was nobody, that he wasn't anything, he was his father, and that was really it. And yeah, she's not wrong. I mean, Horace in general, there wasn't really anything remarkable about him. He wasn't that great of a person. He wasn't really someone who had his whole future decided. He was Pete's brother. He was Pete's cousin. He was Sylvia's brother, and he was Horace the Ninth's son, and he was also Alice's son. But there really wasn't much else to him besides that, and it's really sad to see, definitely, in that scene where she starts to cry and realizes, I think in that moment, the true potential that Horace had, and how really she could have saved him, and how maybe she could have done more, and how everything that Horace has worked for is completely squandered, and that maybe they'll finally be rid of this bar, and maybe they can finally move on, and now there is another Horace who's going to, she wants to possibly save, and her crying at the end, I cried right along with her. It's one of the most tragic endings, but also I think one of the most satisfying endings to anything I've seen in such a long time. It is the perfect ending to a near-perfect show that I think was just so well handled, and I don't really think the show could have ended in any other way than it did right here. So overall, guys, Horace and Pete is an incredible show that really has not gotten enough love. I wish more people watched this show. I wish more people talked about this show. This show is not for everyone. I'm going to tell you that right now. If you don't like slow shows where not a ton is happening in every scene, this is not the show for you. That's just not how it works. It's not the show for you. But if you are willing to give 10 hours or just even 10 episodes, because it's not even 10 hours. Some of the episodes are 30 minutes, like I said. If you're willing to give 10, just give the show 3 episodes, I guarantee one of those 3 episodes are going to hook you in the way it's presented, in the way the story is crafted, in the way that the acting is done. Something about it is going to hook you in, because there hasn't been a single person I've seen that hasn't liked Horace and Pete. Honestly, I think this is a show that everyone will get the same emotional impact from. Everyone has hopes and dreams, and that's something that Horace and Pete had in this show, and that's something that they just realized way too late, that they had potential, and they completely lost sight of what the potential could be. And despite all the problems I have with the show, I'm honestly willing to overlook them. I really am. Yeah, there were some pacing issues. Yes, Jessica Lange could have maybe had a lot more to do, because like I said, she completely disappears after the 5th episode. But other than that, guys, I absolutely loved Horace and Pete. It's one of the most perfect miniseries I've seen in such a long time that I'm really glad it's staying as a miniseries. And I am definitely give Horace and Pete a 5 out of 5 or an A+. This show is incredible. It is extremely thought-provoking. It has so many things to say about society and why we do the things we do. And like I said, control, and how we're constantly manipulated by everyone. Even stuff like Kurt's political conversations really do have to do with that theme of control, and I think that's something that the show just did in such an incredible way. It's a show that everyone needs to watch. It will make you laugh, it'll make you cry, it'll make you think about life, and let me just tell you, like I said, to be prepared, because you're not all prepared. Even if you thought we were prepared, you're not prepared for the ending, but it is an incredibly thought-provoking, emotional journey that is one of the best miniseries you can watch in such a long time. It's something that you're not at all expecting. There's nothing else like TV on it, and I very much commend Louis C.K. for making this exactly what he wanted to. It came at exactly the right time. It is one of the most relevant miniseries I've seen in such a long time, and something that, honestly, as sad as it was, I can't wait to watch again, because I definitely will. So overall, guys, my review of Horace and Pete, you will definitely see the show on my top 20. I'm going to tell you that right now. The show will definitely be on there. I'm not entirely sure where, but it will definitely be on there. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys thought of this mini-series overall. Love to your thoughts. And sorry this video was so long. It's just with a show like this, I had to go really in-depth and talk about everything that happened pretty much. And that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. I will see you guys in my next video, which will finally be for my top 20 best shows of 2016. I know you guys have been looking forward to that video, and that is finally coming today, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.